Finding the trigonometric ratios of special angles, Quarter 4, MELC 2. At the end of this lesson, you are expected to find the trigonometric ratios of special angles. As a review, what are the 6 trigonometric ratios? Those are the sine, cosine, tangent, cosecant, secant, and cotangent. In this lesson, you will learn the process of determining the values of trigonometric ratios of special angles. What are the special angles? There are 2 special right triangles, the 30 degrees, 60 degrees, 90 degrees triangle, and the isosceles 45, 45, 90 degrees triangle. The angles 30 degrees, 60 degrees, and 45 degrees are the most frequently used angle measures in many problems and are referred to as special angles. So these 2 right triangles are the examples of 30, 60, 90 degrees, 45, 45, 90 degrees. 45, 45, 90 degrees right triangle. In a 45, 45, 90 degrees triangle, the legs are congruent. So the 2 legs are these. Congruent means equal. So take note that in this isosceles right triangle, the measure of the legs are congruent. Next, the length of the hypotenuse is the square root of 2 times the length of a leg. So this is the longest side of our right triangle, the hypotenuse. So whatever the measure of the leg, we will multiply it by the square root of 2, and that is the measure of the hypotenuse. 30 degrees, 60 degrees, 90 degrees right triangle. In a 30, 60, 90 degrees triangle, the length of the hypotenuse is twice the length of the shorter leg. So take note of the measure of the length of the hypotenuse in a 30 degrees, 60 degrees, 90 degrees triangle. So whatever the measure of the shorter leg, we will multiply it by 2, and that is the measure of the hypotenuse. So take note that the shorter leg is opposite the 30 degrees angle, and the longer leg is opposite the measure of 60 degrees angle. Then, so whatever the measure of the shorter leg, we will multiply it by the square root of 3 to find the measure of the longer leg. Examples. Find R. So this is our given isosceles right triangle. R is the hypotenuse, so we're going to find the measure of the hypotenuse. So how are we going to find R? Here is our solution. We will use the concept of the 45, 45, 90 degrees triangle, wherein the hypotenuse is the square root of 2 times the length of a leg. So given the measure of one leg, the measure is 3 times the square root of 3. Therefore, we are going to multiply it by the square root of 2. Take note of the concept of radicals. So in multiplication of radicals, so we will take a look of the index. If the 2 radicals have the same index, so we will just multiply the radicand. So yung 2, i-multiply natin dito sa 3 na nasa loob ng radical sign, hindi yung nasa labas. So the square root of 2 times the square root of 3, that will be the square root of 6. And then, itong 3 na nasa labas ng the square root of 3, so that will be multiplied by the number outside also the square root of 2. Since walang number, so it means na that is 1. So 1 times 3, that is 3. So our product is 3 times the square root of 6. So that is now the value of R, or the hypotenuse. Next, number 2 example. Find the length of the indicated side. So this is our given triangle. So the indicated sides are T and S. So S is the hypotenuse and T is the shorter leg. So this is a 30, 60, 90 triangle. So we have here the given 9. That is the measure of the longer leg. So how are we going to find the measure of the shorter leg and the hypotenuse? So by using the concept of the 30, 60, 90 degrees triangle, longer leg is the square root of 3 times the measure of the shorter leg. Since the shorter leg is not given, and the given is the longer leg, so we will do the reverse. The reverse of the multiplication is division. So, to find the measure of the shorter leg, we are going to divide. Longer leg, divide by the square root of 3. Okay? And to get the hypotenuse, so we will multiply the shorter leg by 2. Therefore, solving for the shorter leg, so t is equal to 9 divided by the square root of 3. Now, we will use again the concept of rationalization. So how are we going to rationalize the denominator? So we will multiply the given, this 9 over the square root of 3, we will multiply it by the square root of 3. So bakit the square root of 3? Para matanggal ang radical sign dito sa denominator. Since 3 times 3, that is 9, and the square root of 9 is 3. So, naging 3 na lang yung denominator. And then, yung numerator, 9 times the square root of 3. So, ipagdikit lang natin, that is 9, the square root of 3. Next, since it is a fraction, so we are going to simplify. We will just divide 9 by 3. So that is 3. And attach the square root of 3. So the value of t is 3 times the square root of 3. Next, to solve for the hypotenuse, so the hypotenuse of the 30, 60, 90 degrees triangle is 2 times the measure of the shorter leg. So we found already the measure of the shorter leg, that is 3 times the square root of 3. So we will multiply it by 2. So ano yung i-multiply natin dito? 2 ba i-times sa the square root of 3? Or 2 i-times sa 3? So since yung 2 ay constant, so i-multiply natin siya sa constant na 3. So that will be 6 and attach the square root of 3. So the measure of the hypotenuse or letter S is 6 times the square root of 3. Okay? Trigonometric ratios of special angles. So first, we have sine 45 degrees. Take note that in this triangle, the measure of the two legs are congruent, and the hypotenuse is the square root of 2 times the measure of the leg. So in this triangle, we will let A as the measure of the leg. So, sine 45 degrees, that is opposite over hypotenuse. So the opposite side of 45 degrees is letter A. So that is A over A times the square root of 2. Simplify, we can cancel A. So that is 1 ang matitira sa taas. Sa ilalim ay the square root of 2. Next, rationalize the denominator since our denominator has radical sign. So take note that in every fraction with a radical sign in the denominator, we have to eliminate the radical sign by rationalizing. So to rationalize this given, we are going to multiply both the numerator and the denominator by the square root of 2. So, 1 times the square root of 2, that is the square root of 2. Sa denominator, the square root of 2 times the square root of 2 is the square root of 4. The square root of 4 is positive 2. Therefore, sine 45 degrees is equal to the square root of 2 over 2. Next, cosine 45 degrees, cosine that is adjacent over hypotenuse. So the adjacent side of 45 degrees is A. So, the same lang sa sine 45 degrees. So that is A over A times the square root of 2. So, cosine 45 degrees is equal to the square root of 2 over 2. Next, tangent 45 degrees, that is opposite over adjacent. So the opposite side of 45 degrees is A, the adjacent is A, so that is A over A is equal to 1. So tan 45 degrees is equal to 1. Next, cosecant 45 degrees. Cosecant is the opposite or the reciprocal of sine. So sine is the square root of 2 over 2. Therefore, cosecant 45 degrees is 2 over the square root of 2. Next, rationalize again. So we will multiply both the numerator and the denominator by the square root of 2. So in numerator, 2 times the square root of 2. Ipagdikit lang sila. Next, sa denominator, the square root of 2 times the square root of 2. That is the square root of 4 equals to 2. Next, we can cancel 2. So yung matitira lang sa denominator ay 1. Sa numerator, the square root of 2. So the square root of 2 over 1, that is also the square root of 2. Next, secant 45 degrees. Secant is the reciprocal of cosine. So, baliktarin lang natin ito. So that is 2 over the square root of 2. Kung i-rationalize natin, so magiging the square root of 2 rin siya. Or just simply, so sa secant, that is hypotenuse over adjacent. So, A, the square root of 2 over A. So, we can cancel A. So, yung matitira nila ay the square root of 2. So, pareho lang. Next, cotangent, that is the opposite of reciprocal of tangent. So, 1, the reciprocal is also 1. Therefore, cotangent 45 degrees is 1. Next, angle is 30 degrees. So we have here the 30, 60, 90 degrees right triangle. Take note that the opposite side of 30 degrees is the shorter leg. So we will let A be the measure of the shorter leg. Then, the measure of the longer leg is A times the square root of 3. And the measure of the hypotenuse is 2A. So sine 30 degrees is equal to A over 2A. Cancel yung A. So, yung matitira sa taas ay 1. So, that is 1/2. Next, cosine 30 degrees. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. So, that is A the square root of 3 over 2A. Cancel A. So, yung matitira na lang ay the square root of 3 over 2. Next, tangent 30 degrees. Tangent is opposite over adjacent. So that is A the square root of 3. Cancel yung A. So yung matitira sa taas ay 1. So that is 1 over the square root of 3. Rationalize by multiplying both the numerator and the denominator by the square root of 3. So 1 times the square root of 3, that is 1, the square root of 3. The square root of 3 times the square root of 3, that is the square root of 9. And the square root of 9 is 3. So, tan 30 degrees is equal to 1 the square root of 3 over 3. Next, cosecant 30 degrees. Cosecant is the reciprocal of sine. Since sine is 1/2, the reciprocal of 1/2 is 2 over 1. So, cosecant 30 degrees is equal to 2. Next, secant 30 degrees. Secant is the reciprocal of cosine. So, the reciprocal of the square root of 3 over 2 is 2 over the square root of 3. Rationalize the denominator. So we will multiply both numerator and denominator by the square root of 3. 2 times the square root of 3, ipagdikit lang sila. Next, 3 times 3 is 9. The square root of 9 is 3. Therefore, secant 30 degrees is 2 the square root of 3 over 3. Next, cotangent 30 degrees. The reciprocal of cotangent is tangent. So, pagbaliktarin lang natin itong tangent. So, magiging 3 over the square root of 3. Rationalize again. So, it will become the square root of 3. Next, for the 60 degrees angle. Sine 60 degrees, opposite over hypotenuse. The opposite side of 60 degrees is a times the square root of 3. The hypotenuse is 2a. So, cancel natin yung a. Ang matitira ay the square root of 3 over 2. Next, cosine 60 degrees. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. The adjacent side of 60 degrees is a. So, that is a over 2a. Cancel again a. So, matitira sa taas ay 1. So, that is 1/2. Next, tangent 60 degrees. Tangent is opposite over adjacent. So, opposite is a the square root of 3 over a. Cancel a. So, matitira ay the square root of 3. Next, cosecant 60 degrees. Cosecant is the reciprocal of sine. So, pag binaliktad natin ito, magiging 2 over the square root of 3. Rationalize. Multiply both the numerator and the denominator by the square root of 3. So, it will become 2 the square root of 3 over 3. Next, secant 60 degrees. Secant is the reciprocal of cosine. So, pagbalik na rin ang 1/2, that is 2. Next, cotangent 60 degrees. Pagbalik na rin ang the square root of 3. So, the denominator of the square root of 3 is 1. So, the reciprocal will be 1 over the square root of 3. Rationalize. So, i-multiply sa the square root of 3, both the numerator and the denominator. So, the product will be 1, the square root of 3 over 3. Below is the table that summarizes the values of the 6 trigonometric ratios for special angles 45 degrees, 30 degrees, and 60 degrees. So, take note of this table. So, you can have a copy of this, or kung tinatamad kayong magsulat, i-memorize nyo na lang. Finding the exact values of a trigonometric expression. Examples. Number 1. Determine the exact value of the expression secant 30 degrees plus cotangent 60 degrees. So, how are we going to solve it? Here is the solution. By using the values from the table, the values of secant 30 degrees, that is 2 times the square root of 3 over 3. And the value of cotangent 60 degrees, that is the square root of 3 over 3. We will add these two values. So, in addition of radical expression, we need our prior knowledge, how to add expression with radicals. And we will also use the concept of fraction, how to add similar fractions. So, our given is similar fraction since the same yung denominator. So, just copy the denominator and add the numerator. Now, in adding radical expressions, so we need to see to it that the numerator has the same radicand. So, the same naman yung radicand, the square root of 3. So, just add the constant. So, 1 dito yung constant plus 2, that is 3. So, the sum is 3 the square root of 3 over 3. Cancel 3. So, yung matitira ay the square root of 3. Therefore, the exact value of the given expression is the square root of 3. Next, number 2 example. Find the exact value of sine squared 30 degrees plus cosine squared 45 degrees. This expression is also equivalent to the square of the quantity of sine 30 degrees plus the square of cosine 45 degrees. So, pinalabas lang yung squared sa labas ng parentheses para mas klaro. Next, substitute the value of sine 30 degrees from the table. So, that is 1/2. Magkakalimutan yung squared. Next, the value of cosine 45 degrees is the square root of 2 over 2. So, square 1/2, that is 1 times 1 sa numerator, is 1 also. Ang 2 times din sa sarili niya, so that is 4. Next, the square root of 2 squared, so that is the square root of 2 times the square root of 2, that is the square root of 4. The square root of 4 is positive 2. Kaya naging 2 rito. And then sa denominator, 2 times 2, that is 4. So, we will add 1/4 plus 2/4. Again, this is a similar fraction. So, we will just add the numerator and copy the denominator. So, 1 plus 2 is 3. Copy the denominator 4. So, that is 3/4. The value of sine squared 30 degrees plus cosine squared 45 degrees. Next, number 3 example. Determine the value of angle x when secant x is equal to 2. Solution. Referring to the table, secant 60 degrees is equal to 2. Therefore, the value of x is 60 degrees. So, dito, secant x is equal to 2 raw. So, since sec 60 degrees is equal to 2, so therefore, the value or the angle x is 60 degrees. Next example, if x is equal to 45 degrees, show that secant squared x plus tan x is equal to 3. So, how is that? Substituting x with 45 degrees, since the given x is 45 degrees, so magiging ano siya? Secant squared 45 degrees plus tan 45 degrees. Next, kagaya ng ginawa natin kanina, yung squared ay ipapalabas sa parentheses, so magiging the square of secant 45 plus tan 45 degrees. So, substitute again. From the table, the value of secant 45 degrees is the square root of 2. So, nandyan pa rin yung squared. Then, the values of tan 45 degrees is 1. So, simplify. The square root of 2 i-times sa sarili niya. The square root of 4. The square root of 4 is 2. Bring down plus 1. So, 2 plus 1, that is 3. Thank you.